All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack the real science and the fascinating history behind a truly incredible medicinal plant. This little shrub has a massive global footprint, growing everywhere from southern Asia all the way down to northern Australia. Now, it goes by the rather intense nickname of the puncture vine, but in traditional Ayurvedic medicine, you'll hear it called Gokshura. If you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of herbal remedies, you've probably crossed paths with this one. But today, we're cutting through the noise. We're going to look at the hard data, the clinical trials, and centuries of medicinal pedigree to see what this plant actually does inside the human body. Now, right off the bat, we've got to address the elephant in the room. Does this famous weed actually build muscle? Seriously, if you've ever walked into a Western supplement shop, you've definitely seen Gokshura on the shelves, usually under its Latin name, Tribulus terrestris. The Western fitness industry has been completely obsessed with this plant for decades, pushing it aggressively as this natural testosterone booster and a magical shortcut to huge muscle gains. But is that actually true, or is it just really clever marketing? Well, we're going to answer that question right out of the gate. Here's our quick roadmap for this explainer. First, meet the puncture vine. Second, the great testosterone myth. Third, real evidence-based benefits. Fourth, champion of kidney health. And finally, safety, dosage, and verdict. Let's get into it. Section 1. Meet the puncture vine, the plant behind the hype. So what are we actually dealing with here? Scientifically, it's known as Tribulus terrestris. It's the small leafy shrub that belongs to the caltrop family. Now, botanically speaking, people often just write it off as a common weed, mainly because it literally thrives in harsh, dry, sandy environments where most other plants would just give up. It produces these really unique, spiky little fruits that kind of look like a cow's hoof. But hey, don't let the weed label fool you. This plant has a massive medicinal pedigree. For centuries, it's been deeply revered in both Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. Historically, it's been a go-to for treating conditions related to the urinary tract, the kidneys, and the reproductive system. Moving on to Section 2, the great testosterone myth, supplement versus science. Okay, let's look at the stark contrast between what is promised and what is actually proven. On one side, we have the Western marketing machine. They claim Tribulus terrestris is going to spike your testosterone and pack on the muscle mass. And why do they say that? Well, because in several animal studies, consuming Gokshura actually did significantly raise testosterone levels in rats and mice. But on the flip side, we have the scientific reality for humans. When they tested this in multiple human trials, the results just didn't translate. For example, there was a definitive 5-week study on 22 elite rugby players. Guys training at the absolute highest level. They took 450 milligrams of Gokshura daily, and it did absolutely nothing to significantly increase their muscle mass, their strength, or their free testosterone compared to a placebo. Another 12-week study had 180 men taking a massive 1,500 milligrams a day, and it showed the exact same thing, literally no increase in testosterone. So if you're taking it just to get completely shredded, the science pretty much says you're barking up the wrong tree. Section 3. Real evidence-based benefits. Beyond the muscle. So if it doesn't build massive biceps, what does it actually do? Well, medical researchers and platforms like Healthline have identified a super versatile array of emerging health benefits. Let's rapid fire through these. First, it's got potent antioxidant properties, meaning it protects your cells from free radical damage. Second, it legitimately boosts libido, which we're going to look at more closely in a second. Third, it might lower blood sugar levels by actually blocking the enzymes that break down carbohydrates. Fourth, it has distinct benefits for women's health, especially when it comes to menopausal symptoms and PCOS. Fifth, it contains compounds like tribulosamide that actively reduce inflammation. Sixth, it may help lower blood pressure by relaxing your blood vessels. Seventh, it offers genuine pain release properties. And eighth, it is both traditionally and scientifically linked to treating kidney stones. That is a seriously impressive resume for a humble weed, right? Let's zoom in on that libido benefit for a second because the numbers here are wild. 79%. That is the massive increase in sexual desire observed in a 2-month clinical study of men with reduced sex drive who were taking between 750 and 1,500 milligrams of Gokshura daily. And here's the real kicker. It works just as well for women. In a totally separate 17-week study looking at postmenopausal women with low libido, taking 750 milligrams a day significantly increased sexual desire, arousal, and even reduced pain during sex compared to a placebo. So while it's not raising actual testosterone hormone levels, it is undeniably improving sexual function and desire across the board. And this next point brilliantly illustrates another profound benefit: cardiovascular protection. This data comes from a highly specific study in the EXCLI journal. Researchers essentially simulated a heart attack. They induced cardiac stress in rats using a chemical called isoproterenol. In the control group that didn't get any Gokshura, their total cholesterol spiked to 124 milligrams per deciliter, purely due to the immense cardiac stress. But the group that was pre-treated with a Gokshura aqueous extract, their cholesterol dropped to 110. The plant basically acted as a cellular shield. It significantly blunted the lipid peroxidation and protected the heart's natural antioxidant enzymes from being totally depleted during a major cardiac event.
All right, Section 4, Champion of Kidney Health, the Ultimate Guardian.
While the heart and libido benefits are fantastic, Gokshura is most famous for its impact on the urinary tract, 73%. This isn't just a random number. It's a highly significant statistic published in pharmacognosy research. In this study, they were looking at Gokshura's ability to act as a microscopic stone breaker, which Ayurveda calls Ashmari Bedana. They found that the saponins in the plant, specifically compounds like protodiazine, actually reduced calcium oxalate deposition in the kidneys of rats by a whopping 73%. It literally physically stops the crystals from clumping together to form stones, while its natural diuretic effect helps just flush those smaller fragments right out of the system. But traditional medicine almost never uses a plant completely in isolation. It's all about synergy. And this flawlessly illustrates one of the most famous Ayurvedic formulations out there, Gokshuradi Guglu. Look at how these four ancient components work together like a perfectly tuned engine to clear out metabolic waste. Step 1 is our star, Gokshura, providing that diuretic, stone-breaking, and kidney-flushing action we just talked about. Step 2 is Gugulu, a purified tree resin that is intensely anti-inflammatory, basically soothing the irritated urinary tract. Step 3 is Triphala, an amazing blend of 3 fruits providing deep detoxification and potent antioxidants. And finally, step 4 is Trikatu, a warming spice blend with black and long pepper, which specifically boosts the bioavailability and absorption of all those other ingredients. It's a remarkably sophisticated biological mechanism designed centuries before modern pharmacology even existed. So what does this formulation actually do for something incredibly painful like gout? Well, gout is essentially a form of arthritis caused by having way too much uric acid crystallizing right in your joints. Now, Gokshura possesses what's called uricosuric action. That's just a fancy way of saying it forces your kidneys to pull more uric acid out of your blood and excrete it into your urine. A 12-week observational study on gout patients taking Gokshura de Gugulu found that it successfully dropped their serum uric acid levels from a dangerous 8.6 down to a much safer 6.8 milligrams per deciliter. It flushes out the acid, while the Gugulu in the formula handles suppressing the joint inflammation. Finally, Section 5, Safety, Dosage, and Verdict. Using Gokshura wisely. Let's talk practical application. If we look at standard clinical guidelines for a classical formulation like Gokshuradi Guglu, it generally breaks down like this. For adults, it's typically 250 to 500 milligrams taken twice daily after meals. For the elderly, it's a slightly lower dose, around 250 milligrams twice daily. Now, overall, Gokshura has an exceptionally good safety profile. However, because it has an active, warming metabolic effect, what Ayurveda calls an Ushna potency, meaning it kind of turns up your internal thermostat, it can sometimes mildly aggravate your pitta, maybe causing a bit of heat or a mild stomach upset. To balance that out, traditional practitioners often recommend pairing it with a cooling adjuvant. Think something like taking it with warm milk or even coconut water, just to soothe the system while the herb goes to work. Now, we definitely need a quick disclaimer here for this explainer. As with any dietary supplement, it is absolutely vital to speak with your healthcare professional before taking Gokshura. This is especially true if you have an existing medical condition like diabetes or high blood pressure, or if you're currently on prescription medications. While Gokshura offers some seriously incredible supportive therapy and metabolic balance, it is exactly that, supportive. It's not some magical replacement for professional medical treatment, and it should be integrated intelligently and safely into your health routine. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. We've seen how modern science is finally catching up and validating what traditional healers have known for centuries about the puncture vine. Sure, it's not going to turn you into a massive bodybuilder overnight, but as a guardian for your kidneys, your heart, and your reproductive health, its potential is absolutely immense. So I'll leave you with this thought. If a spiky, common little weed growing in some of the driest, harshest climates on Earth holds the biological keys to protecting our kidneys and lowering our cholesterol, what other forgotten remedies are just growing right under our feet, waiting for us to rediscover them? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep learning.